Have you ever felt paralyzed by fear? That feeling that freezes you, makes you question every decision, and holds you back from moving forward? Or maybe you've experienced anxiety, that constant worry about what's coming next, always imagining the worst-case scenarios? If so, you're not alone. Fear and anxiety are part of the human condition. But is there a better way to deal with these emotions? Today, we'll dive deep into the wisdom of Stoicism to understand how to overcome these emotional obstacles. Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, the great masters of Stoicism, faced these same dilemmas over 2,000 years ago. And their lessons still resonate powerfully today. In this video, you'll learn how to apply Stoic teachings to deal with your fears and anxieties, becoming more resilient, more balanced, and, above all, more at peace with the present. Let's begin. Part 1. What are fears and anxieties? Before talking about how to overcome fear and anxiety, it's important to understand what these emotions truly are. Fear is a primary response from our brain. It arises to protect us from threats. Imagine our ancestors on the savannas, where the fear of predators or natural disasters could mean the difference between life and death. Today, our fears are far more subtle. They don't come from immediate physical threats but from social, professional, and emotional situations. Anxiety, on the other hand, is a form of anticipatory fear. It stems from excessive worry about the future, constantly projecting problems or challenges that may never happen. In essence, anxiety is the fear of the unknown. The Stoics believe that these fears are largely fueled by our distorted perception of reality. Instead of reacting automatically to our emotions, they urged us to question whether what we fear truly deserves so much importance. For the Stoics, fear arises from excessive attachment to external things, money, status, relationships, and even our own health. When we cling to these things, the fear of losing them becomes inevitable. But if we begin to understand that these things are not within our control, we can reduce the intensity of these emotions. Part 2. Controlling what we can control. One of the central lessons of Stoicism is the distinction between what we can and cannot control. Epictetus was clear when he said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not up to us." But what does this really mean? The things within our control include our thoughts, actions, and moral choices. We have complete control over how we choose to interpret and respond to the events around us. On the other hand, there are countless things outside our control: other people's opinions, external events, other people's behavior, and even our own mortality. When we worry about what's outside of our control, we are essentially fighting the inevitable. Imagine being on a boat in the middle of a storm. You can't control the wind, the waves, or the rain. But you can control how you respond to it. You can adjust the sails, hold the helm steady, and remain calm. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How many times in life do we agonize over things that never actually happen? That job interview, that difficult conversation, that potential failure. And in the end, when we face the situation, we realize it was far less scary than we imagined. Part 3. Negative visualization, facing fear head-on. Now let's talk about a powerful Stoic technique called Premeditatio Malorum, or negative visualization. This practice involves rationally anticipating the worst-case scenarios. For the Stoics, this wasn't pessimism but a way to emotionally prepare for what might happen. Epictetus reminds us, when you kiss your child, remind yourself that they are mortal, thus, if they die, you will not suffer. While this idea may seem shocking, it's a tool to help us face the reality of life. Everything is temporary, and by accepting this, we can live more lightly and with less fear. Let's consider a practical example. Suppose you're afraid of losing your job. Negative visualization asks you to imagine this scenario: you lose your job, face financial difficulties, and need to look for alternatives. How would you handle it? What would be your first steps? What support systems would you have? When you truly reflect on these scenarios, you realize that the worst is rarely as catastrophic as your mind makes it seem. And by preparing mentally, you also reduce the emotional shock if the worst actually happens. Part 4. Living in the present, letting the future wait. Marcus Aurelius, in his famous Meditations, gives us one of the most valuable pieces of advice for dealing with anxiety: live in the present. He writes, "Do not let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same reason that equips you against the present." This reminds us that anxiety is essentially a projection of the future. We get caught up in scenarios that haven't happened yet, forgetting that the only moment we control is the now. When we worry excessively about what may come, we lose the opportunity to act and enjoy the present moment. The Stoics encourage us to focus on what we can do now. What concrete actions can we take today to improve our situation? What is under our control at this moment? By redirecting our focus to the present, we not only reduce anxiety but also increase our ability to solve problems. If you're anxious about a work project, instead of spending hours imagining what could go wrong, ask yourself, what can I do now to make it better? This focus on the present is one of the most effective ways to reduce anxiety. Part 5: Practical Exercises to Overcome Anxiety. Now that we understand the basics of Stoicism, let's look at some practical exercises you can start applying in your life today to better manage anxiety. Stoic Journal: spend a few minutes each day writing about your fears and anxieties. List what is under your control and what is not. This simple act of writing helps clear your mind and reduce feelings of helplessness. Morning meditation: when you wake up, spend a few minutes in Stoic reflection. Think about the challenges the day may bring and mentally prepare yourself to face them with calm and virtue. Self-distancing: try to distance yourself from your emotions. Imagine you are a wise advisor offering guidance to a friend who is facing similar fears and anxieties. What would you say to them? This practice helps you view your concerns more objectively. Conclusion: fear and anxiety are natural parts of human life. But with the tools of Stoicism, we can learn to master them rather than let them master us. By controlling what we can, accepting what we cannot, and cultivating virtue in all situations, we can face life with more courage and serenity. If you enjoyed these Stoic lessons, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share this wisdom with someone who might benefit from it too. See you in the next video.